This is part 3 of the video tutorial. In this segment, we're going to be installing all of the necessary tools to get Glassfish and ADF Essentials running on our remote EC2 Linux. First one we're going to install is the JDK. ADF 12C is certified for JDK 1.7 update 15 plus. So there's a couple of ways to do this install. One way is obviously you can download the JDK file locally and then use FileZilla to transfer it over to your micro instance. Or the other way I can show you is a quick trick where you can use wget to get the JDK download file. So go ahead and go over to the official download site. We're going to click on download. Go ahead and click accept. And for my micro instance, I am looking at a 32-bit install, so I'm going to take this file. Now, the trick is once it starts to download, in Google Chrome, you can say show all downloads. And there's actually a URL here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this link address. Come back to my putty session and say wget paste. And that's a little trick I like to use so I don't have to install the web browser. Okay, now the file is downloaded, and we're just going to rename this something a bit more friendly. .7u45 tar.gz. I'm going to install this under my user directory. Now to extract the file, I'm going to say tar exdf and file name. After the extract, we are going to add to our path variable. This could be done using bash. And nano. So once you open up your profile, you can go to the end of the file and add the new directory for Java Home. Control X. Okay. And then source the file. Once that's done, you can call Java. Next, we're going to install Glassfish. I'm going to use the same method I used before, which is going to the official Glassfish download site, taking out the Linux shell script, copy that, then going back to my prompt. Okay, it's downloaded. Before we can execute the script, we have to chmod +x the script. Okay, it turns green. Now, if you already have the X server started, then we should be able to get to go. If you haven't, just go ahead and start that server. Next, we're going to execute the script. Now you can see that the GUI popped up, and also the Java Home is set to the earlier step I showed you guys within your bash profile. So if you have some errors here, make sure that this directory is valid. We're going to try to do this install with all of the default settings. Now, even though we are going to install this with the full install configuration, I'm still going to select this just to review the information. Click Next. We are going to choose Install and Configure. Click Next. I'm going to use the same directory. And you can see that it's already pre-configured with the JDK that I set up in my bash profile. For the purpose of this install, I don't need to do any updates. Click Next. And finally, click Install. Select Create a Server Domain. And we're going to keep all of these default values. The domain name is going to be domain 1. The admin port is 4848. HTTP port is 8080. And those are going to be port numbers that we're going to have to copy over to the security policy for the EC2 instance later. The password, we're going to create one. And go ahead and click Next. And we're going to click Next once that's completed. And click Exit once complete. After we installed our Glassfish server and configured the domain, what we need to do is enable secure admin for JBolt to connect remotely. To do that, to the Glassfish directory, start the AS, and we can list domain to see if domain is running, and it is. Domain 1 is running. And then enable secure admin. Okay, and in order for that kick in, we're going to restart the domain. Now you got to make sure you configured this domain with a password. If you don't, you would have to change that password, assign one, and then enable secure admin. It won't allow you to do that if you have a blank password. Now that domain has been restarted, we're complete with this step. Now we're going to configure our port settings for our EC2 instance. We're going to do this one by one. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that we can access the admin console remotely for Glassfish. So what we're going to do is just click on the instance, go ahead and click on the security group. Okay, this is the default security group that's been created for me when I created the instance. Go down here, click on inbound. Port range, I'm going to click, type in 4848. Now to test these ports, what we're going to do is go back to the instance, get this public DNS, for a new tab here, paste it, and the default port. Now you should see the Glassfish server up and running. Test the admin console. We're going to click proceed anyway. Give it a moment to restart. Give it a moment to start. Okay, and put an admin and put an admin and the password that you assigned earlier during configuration. Now we're going to install ADF Essentials. Schmelzer put together a really nice blog on how to set up ADF Essentials on Glassfish. So basically I'm just going through this blog and taking out some of the steps that I'm using to install onto EC2 instance. install ADF Essentials. And after clicking Accept License Agreement, come down here to ADF Essentials 1212, Download File. I think the first time you're downloading this, you will be prompted to answer a short survey. Now we're going to click the download file, and we're going to pause it. Go to Show All Downloads, get the URL again, come back to the terminal, wget, and that should download it into the directory that Shai specified in his blog post. Now that's transferred, we're going to rename this to something that makes sense. I'm sure there's a flag for this, but I'm lazy to look that up for wget. Okay, now that we have our zip file, I am in the directory that Shai mentioned in the blog post, and now we're going to just go unzip-j adfessentials.zip, and that should inflate everything without the directory structure. And that's it for installing the library files. Now that we have all of our ADF Essentials library installed, we're going to go ahead and start the domain and add 2 of the parameters that Shai mentioned in the blog post. So we're going to go to Glassfish, our ASA admin. So if I do list domain, or list domain, it should tell me what instances are running. You can see that domain 1 is running. Now we're going to go to the console. Okay, once we're in, we're going to go to server config, JVM settings, JVM options. So the perm size, we're going to switch to 512, and we're going to add this flag, -d Oracle MBS cache equals to simple. Save. And it's going to say that a restart is required. So you can go ahead and just click restart. Okay, now our server has restarted. We will proceed with installing MySQL. We're just going to do sudo yum-y install MySQL server MySQL. I believe this installs version 5.5. Completed. And we're going to start MySQL. Should start it as a daemon. Okay, now that we have MySQL installed and started up as a service, we are going to change the default root password. So that can be done by issuing the following command: MySQL admin-u root-p password. Enter password. This is the default password, which is blank. New password, I'm just going to say glassfish. Okay. Now that we have our root account set up, I'm going to go ahead and create a account for me to connect to from JDeveloper, because I don't want to use root as the default connection. we're going to go ahead and log in as root, fish, and I'm just going to copy and paste these commands. And that's it. If you want to get more information, just go to my blog and I will list this command that I use to create the user. Now, another way I like to test my SQL connection, especially the remote connection that we just set up for the account to use, is through the MySQL Workbench tool. And before we launch that, we're going to go back to our EC2 instance console, and we are going to create another port for it to allow incoming connections. Okay, and the port for the default MySQL setup was 3306. Add the rule. Don't forget to click Apply Rule Changes. Okay, and you'll see that now this inbound port will also be allowed. Go ahead and start MySQL Workbench. Okay, we're gonna create a brand new connection. Give it a name. The host name is the DNS value. If you forget that, just go back to your console, go to your instance, and get the public DNS value from here. Okay, port is 3306. The account I just created was Wes. Test the connection. That's a good sign. And we're good. So once you have that set up, you should be able to come in here and browse the database. Well, we're going to create a very simple database for us to use later on to build our application. So go ahead and open MySQL Workbench. And I'm just going to say create database ADF. Refresh it so you can see it. Okay, I'm going to create a single table. I'm going to call it IP. And I'm going to add a couple of columns. IP address. This is going to be a bar cart. And we'll leave that to be one. I'm going to add another one called count or visitor count. And this is going to be an integer. And that's it. Finish. Oh, should be able to see the table after we created that. Now we're going to set up a MySQL data source that is container managed by Glassfish. And one way to do this is obviously to log into the console. And there is a nice interface for you to create the connection pool and then associate it with the actual JDBC resource. And I thought I would go about it doing another way directly by the console, because when I try to create this connection pool, I think it probably has to do with the just the compute power in EC2 micro instance. It's not enough, so it took a while for it to actually be created. So instead of using the UI, I'm just going to use this console-based creation method. Again, you can get this from my blog. Log into ASA. Just going to go ahead and paste this. And I'm going to give it a name for the pool. And you can see that now I can create this pool using the console, which creates pretty quickly. After our JDBC connection pool has been set up, we're going to create a new JDBC resource. Click new and type in JDBC / Glassfish MySQL. Remember to choose your pool. and click OK. We got this error because the MySQL driver was not installed, and obviously Glassfish does not come bundled with the MySQL driver. So what we're going to do is just manually install this. Also, the wget option doesn't work for this download link. So what we're going to have to do is just download it and then FTP it over. Okay. Once it's downloaded, we're going to extract it. Okay, now the file is over. What we're actually going to do is put this jar file in a specific folder under the JDK that we installed earlier. So that is the directory. And we're going to put it right here. Oh, we need the sudo. Okay. Installed our MySQL driver, we should be able to ping our data source successfully. So after the server restart, just go ahead and log in. Go down to JDBC connection pools, click on the connection that we created, and go ahead and ping. Great, ping succeeded.